This is LiveView Native, 18 months in. Are we there yet? So those of you who saw me speak last year, we weren't there yet, and Brian came up in his big keynote and said, yeah, we're not there yet. So that was kind of a surprise because I didn't know he was going to do that until he did it. Or maybe a few hours before he did it, he said, I'm going to announce that we're not quite there yet. So now we've been 18 months. I took a break from it for a while because they were working with styles and style sheets and how they should format styles. And I'm like, you know, I have nothing to contribute to that, so I'll wait till it's done. They got it done, and then I went and looked at it, and let's see where we are now. So who am I? I'm an independent Elixir consultant, not affiliated with Dockyard, but many thanks to Dockyard for allowing access to the LVN team. They are super helpful in terms of, hey, this doesn't quite work. Am I doing it wrong? Or are the docs wrong? Or what is up? You can email me. You can find me on Twitter and Elixir Slack. You can even find me on LinkedIn. So why a LiveView Native app? I want to make an iOS app with machine learning, but I need a camera. So we're still waiting on the camera. That's, from what I hear, going to come out in 040. Once we have camera access, then we can work on that app. I also want to make a big screen tvOS and iOS composite application because I think that would be sort of interesting, and I'll show you a little bit of that later, that you can use the tvOS for one display and the iOS and iPad for a different display. And then the reason we were looking at it last year was I have a client who does SMS. They were doing SMS via the text gateway, and if you've ever done that, that is a, well, the text gateway is free. The problem is that its reliability is like 45%. So we've switched to direct SMS, but if we went to a notifications type platform, then our costs would be reduced. But for that, we need Android, and we're still waiting on Android, which is still coming. So what is the desired LiveView Native functionality that I was looking for? Notifications, display of data, image input, which we talked about is coming in camera, and then login in session. So last year we had our journey. It was an uphill ride in the rain and hail, and we had fearsome adversaries. So that was our ride last year. It was really, really tough. So what does our journey look like this year? So I don't have great camping pictures this year. I went to North Georgia, didn't ride a horse. But so first it is mix.exs includes. So you have to make the includes, which we'll see in a minute. Then, like Brian indicated earlier, if you were here, you do LVN setup. Then it prompts you to do LVN setup config and also run mix LVN setup gen. And then it says, go look here. And then you're going to modify whatever your page is to say, oh, by the way, you're also going to render LiveView Native. And if you forget that, which you will, trust me, I forgot it this morning when doing a modification, it would just sit there and spin and spin and spin and spin. And you're like, what have I done wrong? Oh, well, I forgot to say route for the LiveView Native. Then you can generate your Swift UI home. Then you're going to go to Xcode and say, yes, all this stuff that I've installed, I really want installed and I trust it. And then all the simulators work. So last year we weren't even going to the process of how to get to this point, but now you basically run 4 or 5 commands, paste a couple of lines, generate a LVN live view, and the simulators are up and running. So if you want to deploy to your devices, you need to set up your Xcode project and change a URL maybe. Oh, definitely for the devices, change your URL, and then you're on device. So this is going to sort of overview what you will see when you run those different things. The first part you see is you have to put in LiveView Native, Style Sheet, Swift UI, and Liveform, which Brian indicated earlier. Once it runs, it's going to say run those next two commands. And then the output is this. The first one is going to modify in the green at the top, is going to modify your existing files to put some additional routing information in, some additional homepage information in. It just sort of sticks that in, which is really nice because, like Brian said, you used to have to cut and paste that, which is a real hassle because if you miss a line or something like that, or you paste it in the wrong spot, it's going to take you forever to diagnose it. The second one, when you run, it's going to generate the additional files that you need to make your application work. So there's very little impact on an existing application. I made a new application to test this with and made some pages and some functionality that was relatively trivial because I wanted to see what is the impact on somebody's existing application. So then you're going to have to generate a scaffold for your Swift UI. Remember, you're going to have to use, in my case, LVN 2024 native LiveView. Otherwise, your LiveView native views will not work, and you will be very sad and confused and rant about it, and then it'll get pointed out that you forgot that. So you generate, just like before, LVN gen live, Swift UI, because we're doing Swift UI right now, and then just home, and it will create a home live for Swift UI, and it will create a Neeks file. So Neeks is the Heeks equivalent for LiveView Native. So you basically have one file for Heeks and one file for Swift UI. And I assume that when Android comes out, you'll have something like jetpack.neeks or something like that. I don't know what it'll be. And then what that will do is in your home live Swift UI, you're going to have just those 3 lines there. So it's basically a shim file. And then your home live Swift UI Neeks will be empty. There'll be nothing in there. So if you want to, just like in Heeks, you can render your HTML inside of your EX file. And I do that just because it's easier for me to do right now. But you can do it either way. If you render it inside of your EX file, then it'll take precedence over your Neeks file. So as we talked about, you have to enable the plugins. This is how you trust the app away. It's going to give you these two. If you look at create a Swift UI application, which you'll be prompted to look at, it's going to say, hey, are you sure you really want to trust all these things? You actually have to trust them twice. You trust them at like a global level, which is the left-hand box. And then on the right-hand box, you have to go through each error that Xcode gives you and say, yes, I really do trust this because you're giving me an error. So that was a big complication last year. It's become a lot smoother this year because they get inserted with the generators and you don't have to deal with doing it yourself. So if we look, the immediate file that it creates is content view. Last year when you created something and it couldn't connect or it was loading or anything else, you were just kind of hosed. And now you've got a loading screen, a disconnected screen, an error screen, which you will see a lot. But they're much nicer than last year, which basically you got your screen or the error screen and nothing else. So on the LiveView side, as a developer, you're going to write the same as LiveView. Everything's the same, except you have to add that one line. So when you go to do your development and you forget that one line, you're going to say, that's right, I was told to put that line in there. And there's a little bit, if you do authentication, there's a little bit of change in your auth.ex, but I believe there's a generator for that now that puts that in. If not, I'll show you how to do that or where you can look. So inside your LiveView native rendering, you can see that there are several ways to do it. Brian indicated that when he was talking in the last talk, if you were here. So basically, the first way, if you look at it, is you can set a target, which in the first one here is watchOS. Am I reading that right? Yes, watchOS. It's really tiny on my screen. Hopefully, y'all can see it better. And then you write that. Otherwise, if you want to do a target with multiple targets, you can do the second format, which is for macOS and tvOS. And then you can see the third one is going to default to just whatever interface is left. So you can also do a render one, which right now takes precedence over everything. So in this case, the only one that would run is render 1, because that's the way it is. But you can target, and as he talked about, inside of this interface, you can also filter on other things such as version. I didn't get into that in my development. I just showed different targets. So we're all familiar with LiveView Native, but I just show something so that you can see, here's a LiveView Native piece, you have some prices, you show the key and the value for that prices list. So if we look in Swift, we just basically change to VStack, which is vertical stack, HStack, which is horizontal stack, and stick our information in there with text and a spacer. So you do have to learn what is the Swift UI conventions for these items. So on the LVN side, you're going to use the Swift conventions and render 1, and your Neeks files. You're going to have OS-specific details that require another level of effort, like if you're doing Pigeon, because you actually want to do notifications, then you're going to have to write some Xcode for that. They have the UI kits, like Charts, Map Kit, Video AV Kit. They have whatever the one you need for Vision now, which is, I think, Reality Kit, which is how they made that cool block game. If you haven't done the cool block game, you should go try it. I would have sworn that you could not do that in Elixir Phoenix, much less LiveView Native, but it was really cool to see it work on Vision OS. Like Brian said, there's really no practical application for that right now, but it's a really cool technology demo. Not yet feature complete. They're still working on camera access through AV Foundation, but that's coming soon. So the current LiveView Native status, you can develop in it. The OS feature integration requires some Swift OS knowledge, but the startup is simple now, and really running through those commands. If I weren't making slides as I did it, I could have done it in 5 minutes. Do note that as has been said, there is no offline functionality. If you're offline, just like for regular LiveView Native. But I know that's a common question. So what is the target statuses for LiveView Native? iOS, and this is my opinion, this is not necessarily Dockyard's, so they may say otherwise. iOS is solid. That's really where I see them focusing. tvOS is working this year, and it works in the simulator. Last year, there were some issues with the simulator because they weren't supported with some underlying technology. That works fine this year. Last year, I had to bring my tvOS box, but this year it got to stay home and not travel. We have macOS, we have watchOS, we have visionOS. Android is a work in progress. I don't know when that's coming out or what their estimation is. They're working on it. We don't have Windows now, and according to Brian, they're sort of evaluating that because of Microsoft's new stance. And the piece that he doesn't remember that he mentioned 3 years ago is we still don't have Unity integration. But I doubt that will ever happen. That was just sort of an interesting point in LVN's history. So what do I need to know as an Elixir developer? I am not an iOS developer and had opened Xcode very minimally before working in LiveView Native. So render uses the special tags, which we looked at. There is extensive documentation on if you need to make a list or if you need to make a scrolling list. All of that is in the documentation at HexDocs. It's really nicely organized. Brooklyn and his team, I think it was Brooklyn who did it, did an amazing job of getting that up and working. If you want to do the actual development on the device, you're going to need a developer ID, which is kind of a pain, plus Xcode, which be prepared to download a lot of stuff. And if you want the simulators, wow, let me tell you, the simulators are huge. So don't try and get to the conference and decide, oh, I think I'm going to look at the Vision OS simulator, because it's like, would you like to download 7 gigabytes? And it's not a fast download, even when I'm on my fast network at home. It's like Apple may rate limit or something, but it takes forever to download the simulators. I'm not sure what Android is going to require, but I'm not an Android developer. And the question you need to ask yourself is, do I need Swift code integration or not? If you're doing just your normal app, then you don't really need to do that. And then look at the kits, the map kit, the chart kit. The AV kit allows you to do a lot of things very, very easily, especially the map kit I played with, and it's really nice. You just have a map, and you don't have to worry about lots of things there. And then Brian talked about LVN Go. If you want to try this out with your existing app, then set up your app with the appropriate LiveView Native pieces, and then use LVN Go on it, and then you get to test it out and see how it works, just as is, without having to go through the whole Xcode process. So we're going to do a demonstration real quick, because that's always fun. There's going to be no live device demo this year. Like I said, the tvOS got to stay home. And I'm going to show you something which is the demonstration of multiple concurrent simulators. So if you look here, you can see, oh, nope, you have to do something different now.
Yeah. It's good mode. Yeah, now they can see it.
Okay. See? Thank you very much. There's my TV. There's my watch. So this was sort of a happy coincidence. I was starting things and testing them out, making sure that different things would show up on different platforms and to make sure that the code was working. And not being an Xcode developer, I didn't realize, oh, look, I'm making all these simulators. And when I go back to Xcode, which is in a different program than the Xcode simulator program, they just keep running in the background. So eventually I had all of these things running. But you can see in the upper left, we have an Apple TV. And then in the background with that nice little hotel room looking thing is the Vision OS simulator, if you've never seen it. Then we have a little watch down there in the bottom. And then on the right, we have a phone. And you can see they all say, hello from LiveView Render Native. And then if we go to Visual Studio, I'm going to make use of the render surpasses everything. So if I comment that out, you can see that I'm going to have a target for Vision OS and tvOS, a separate target for iOS, and then a default there. So if I save that and click back, you'll see that they all immediately refresh almost as fast as I can switch back. And you can see that this one says tvOS, this says Vision OS for the Vision one, the watch one just says Render 2, and then the iOS one had a dedicated one, which was that. So the nice part about it is if you're modifying your LiveView Native code and not the Swift code, you don't have to rebuild anything, you just change it, and your views update just like you're in LiveView. So that is really sweet. Once you get your app deployed to your device, then it works the same way. You can change anything, and it changes for you right there, just like your normal development. So I'm going to go over here to the phone for a second. You can see, just for example, this has a little different one. This one has a link to publishers, and the other ones don't. So this shows how you can do different things on different devices at the same time. So if we click Publishers, then we're going to see my wonderfully formatted publisher list that I use the list view for. And interestingly enough, and I don't know why because I haven't read the docs enough yet for the new layouts, I automatically get a back button. So I didn't have to put that in there. It just magically showed up because I was changing my display. So that is my little demo on how things work. And we'll go back and look for a second. And the only difference is I have multiple targets in the first render. I have an iOS target and then I have just the generic interface. And so it's that simple to make a different layout for each one, with the caveat that you still have to make the layout and make it look good. So that's more of a design issue than a programmatic issue. So what is the future? So they're working on stability and performance improvements. They talked about that this morning. With the performance, I haven't seen any stability issues this year. It seems to work fine out of the box. They're working on Android. They're working on more LVN integration kits like AVKit and MapKit. So I have a list of resources. The first one is Getting Started, which is going to tell you to do the LVN gen. The Swift Getting Started is you're going to be taken there at some point in the process where it keeps putting stuff up. If you want to participate and talk with the developers, then go to the Elixir Slack, LiveView Native. They're there all the time. Brian is there like all the time. I don't think he sleeps. I think he lives on that channel. There's the Swift UI Cookbook, which was mentioned. That shows you how the different elements show up on LiveView Native. So I would recommend going there because it does take a sort of a little mind shift to go from, oh, I'm used to doing HTML. Now I need to think like Swift and how does it do it? I mentioned LVN Go here. That is the app. There's a repo, so you can go look at it if you want. And I'm going to mention Justin Torme's Lax GitHub. So Brian mentioned that and showed you. You can go to that GitHub. It's got his complete project files in there. If you look through the Git commits, you'll see where they put in the authentication. So there's a commit in there that says, hey, here's how authentication works. There's also one that shows how Pigeon is implemented in it. So Pigeon requires you to do basically Swift coding. So go look in there. I think there are 2 or 3 commits in a row that make Pigeon work. Essentially what happens is the application is going to do a post back to the server from within Swift. The server is going to get the information, process it, and then send it back on the LiveView channel over the WebSocket to update the app. So you have to do a round trip, but it's all documented there so you can easily see it. So I didn't show any of that because there's a code repo. So I want to acknowledge Brian Cardarella and Carson Catry, who is sitting in the audience. From Dockyard, they have been immensely helpful in this 18-month journey. Remember, I'm the non-Dockyard LVN presenter. So last year we had a song. I will not repeat my rap song from last year, but I will read the chorus and the outro as we're winding up here. You better code in LiveView Native, grasp the chance. Through the hurdles and changes, you advance. Keep your head up high, maintain your stance. In the end, it's the struggle that makes you dance. So remember, in the world of LiveView Native, through the hardships and changes we create, with each line of code we elevate. In the end, it's our passion that seals our fate. So if you want to hear the whole song, go watch last year's video. So are we there yet? Go play with it and you decide. I would say that it is much, much, much simpler than last year. Last year, I would not say, hey, why don't you go spend a couple of hours on it, because I think you'd have been frustrated. This year, with a couple of hours, you get a whole lot of the way down the path to seeing what you need. Just determine what your project needs are and see if the current implementation will do it. If not, then ask on the Slack channel what other options are available and when are they coming along, like if you need Android or something. But otherwise, I would say that it's there. It gave me enough to get through my application and get it ready. And Justin's already created his application and had this laid on top of it in a fairly short order. So, are there any questions? Okay, thank you very much.